Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am here again to talk to you about important lessons from my practice as a neurologist, which I think will benefit you and benefit everyone else around you as we share with them. Welcome back to Brain Gist. This is a channel where we educate people about neurological disorders, the brain, the spinal cord, the nerves, everything that's essential for you to know. And it's one thing at a time, one essential lesson at a time. So today I'll be talking to you about something I learned from very recently in my practice. And that has to do with, you know, caution around, cardio exercises. We've emphasized a lot, and I believe you've learned from various sources how important it is to exercises that can raise your heart rate, how profitable these exercises are, not only to brain health, to heart health, and to your overall health and even longevity. I remember mentioning that very recently that you can potentially prolong your life, by up to 10 years if you exercise regularly. But there's something very important that we probably have not expressly mentioned before, which I think I should dedicate this video to based on a recent experience I had, which was quite sobering and quite revealing and educating to me. And I thought I would share it with you. That should be a benefit to you who watches this channel frequently. And what is this experience I had? Now, it was a 45-year-old man who is in this, is still quite young. And this person left their home to go play paddle. And that's, of course, that's a healthy practice. You leave your home to go play paddle tennis. And that's definitely something we encourage. And in the process of playing paddle, they developed cardiac arrest. For those who don't know what cardiac arrest is, cardiac arrest means the heart suddenly stops. The heart should not have any business stopping. It should actually work throughout the lifetime of a person. If the heart stops, one can potentially die within minutes. From physiology, we learned that if the heart stops for up to 4 minutes, then you may have irreversible damage to the brain and other very essential organs. That if you restart the heart later than that, then it might be too late. So, of course, being in a good place like UAE, they were able to call the ambulance, and the ambulance came, and the paramedics came and helped to revive the heart. And then, but that short time interval from the time the cardiac arrest happened on the paddle cord to the time the medics arrived, and of course when they start the resuscitative effort, the CPR, it would take some time for the heart to be restarted. And eventually the heart got restarted, but unfortunately there had already been some serious injuries to the internal organs, particularly the brain, which at this point we think is irreversible. I was involved in the care of this young man. Unfortunately, he looks like the brain has already suffered some irreversible injury, and this young man possibly may not survive, and even if he does, he may remain in a vegetative state and may no longer be able to communicate or do the things they used to do or relate to their loved ones. So imagine someone who left their home healthy enough to be able to go play paddle tennis. It means they were relatively okay. So what lessons can we learn from here? So the point is, as useful as exercise can be, if we do not take the right precautions, it can turn harmful, just like anything in life. So there are certain precautions which I learned from here, and I thought you guys are the first set of people I need to share this with. because I consider you family since you watch my channel all the time. And of course, please do others the benefit of sharing these videos with them, because I know exercises are in vogue right now. Everywhere you go in the gyms, you see people on the treadmills, you know, people having classes, doing aerobic exercises, all sorts, running, you know, all sort of exercises. We encourage these things. They're very, very good to live a healthy lifestyle. But these things are very important. And what we found out eventually was that this man actually had some what we call coronary artery disease, which was undiagnosed before. It means that this person had some critical narrowing of the arteries that supply blood to the heart, and this was not discovered or treated. And when they got into such intense exercise situations, it exacerbated the problem, and they suffered a heart attack, which now led to cardiac arrest. So when people put themselves through the kind of stress we go through during intense aerobic exercises, be it running, be it tennis playing, be it jogging, be it whatever raises your heart rate, that stress on the heart can be deleterious if the heart has been compromised to a level that it cannot cope with that level of exercise. So what do we need to do? First is we all need to see our cardiologist. I'm sure my cardiology colleagues will be happy with me for helping promote their business. But then actually, it's not about business promotion right now. It's about health promotion. So if you are 40 years and above and you want to be engaging in exercise, I think it's reasonable that you see a competent cardiologist to assess the state of your heart. For those of us who actually do annual health check, I do it and I encourage you to do it. You know, these things are part of the basic things that you go through. At least you might get the opportunity to get an ECG done, and that's the electrocardiogram, and then sometimes you even do a stress test where they actually see, they put your heart through stress, just like you will be exposed to on your tennis court or during any other form of intense aerobic exercise, you know, and they see whether this heart can tolerate it. And if it can't, then they will see why it's not able to do so, and then they would treat it, and that can be life-saving. You know, I remember there was a man who actually was involved in an altercation back then when I was still practicing in Nigeria. There was a man in his mid-50s, or mid-50s, I think, who was having an altercation with some other persons, and during that altercation, they just collapsed and died. And I suspect that this individual probably had a critical narrowing of some of the arteries of the heart, and then that wasn't discovered or diagnosed, and then during this altercation, you know, that kind of excited the heart, and the heart couldn't cope with it, and then they collapsed. So the point is, if you go for a cardiac assessment, your cardiologist will know, you know, whether your heart is in the right state that can cope with whatever forms of exercise you want to do. So the common things, I'm not a cardiologist, but the common situations that can actually cause the heart to suddenly arrest during exercise could include things like undiagnosed critical narrowing of the arteries of the heart, what we call coronary artery disease, or some people might have, you know, rhythm problems of the heart, cardiac rhythm problems that we call arrhythmias, which may not be compatible with certain levels of exercise. And some people might even have structural problems of their heart. So if you don't get checked, there's no way, guys, you would ever know that you have a problem that could potentially, unfortunately, cause you to lose your life or cause a cardiac arrest during exercise. So it's important to take this message very, very seriously. So if you're going to be engaging in any sort of exercise, you should get your heart checked. And in general, actually, I think for our well-being, every year we should have our health checked by competent doctors. So remember, again, it's one essential tip at a time. I remain yours sincerely, Dr. John Oluwole, your neurologist, and I'll see you again next time. Till then, keep fit, stay safe. Bye for now.